Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is the TV review and I'll be having a look at the series Mortal Kombat Conquest. So Mortal Kombat, in case you don't know, is a violent video game that was released back in the classic era, Mega Drive and SNES days, based on a sort of an arcade game of the same name. And the idea of the game was very much like a sort of Street Fighter clone, really, where you had these sort of various different fighters fighting sort of one-on-one combat. Spawned a couple of movies, countless sort of iterations of video games, cartoon series, and now we have obviously the sort of web series, which has been on more recently. But we also had this series, which is kind of more of your traditional TV series. Now, if you've seen the actual films, this one I would say bears more of a similarity to the Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which was the second film. Now, I'm not 100% sure if it's actually supposed to take place in the same universe as the films. I think it is. It's actually set sort of sometime in the past, I gather, but we don't really know exactly how long or where it is. It's actually supposed to be based, because it's very much, if you can imagine, if you would say like Xena would look like a, obviously like a medieval setting, but it kind of looks like it's basically a fantasy setting. But we're supposed to believe, obviously, it's kind of based on our world. And it really follows the focus of three main heroes. Kung Lao, which is actually a character from the original games. And he's kind of, I guess, the central character. And he's basically this kind of like champion, human, warrior, monk type guy. We've also got Tarja, played by Kristen Loken, who you may know from the Terminator 3. And she's basically a thief that kind of has a sort of heart of gold, ends up sort of joining the team. Zero, who is kind of like this bodyguard of this sort of princess, and she gets sort of killed in the early on in the series, and he basically once again he sort of joins the team. And it's really these three heroes banding together to try and sort of, well, the actual, what we're given at the beginning of this series, that they are meant to be training other fighters to join the sort of the ranks of the good or Earthrealm warriors to fight the warriors of Outworld, which is basically another dimension which is trying to sort of overtake Earth and stuff like that. And they determine it by having this little contest. But we never really see them like train any other sort of characters at all, to be honest with you. It's kind of really, they end up sort of having all these little random adventures with sort of different characters and different sort of politics that are sort of involved through these different sort of clans and organisations that are in this sort of world. They're also guided by Raiden, who is kind of like their sort of spiritual sort of leader, if you like, and he sort of gives them advice and tries to sort of like spur them on to do the rest thing. And they really fight the bad guys, which are sort of Shao Kahn and Shang Tsung and a variety of other people. So now let's get one thing straight. This series is particularly cheesy. If you have watched the opening credits, and it has this sort of dumb sort of like clips from the kind of a couple of the characters that are given their kind of like point of views, if you like, and it is so cheesy. The sets look really cheap. It's very much like Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess, stuff like that. The acting is all very cheesy as well. It's all very sort of kind of standard TV acting. The plots I don't think are particularly good. However, the one thing this series does excel on is, I would say, the fight scenes, and for a TV budget, they're pretty damn good. So if you're interested in martial arts, I think so the sort of choreography of the fights, and there's always fights. I mean, every episode there's at least probably one or two fights, and for the most part they're particularly good. Now, some of these sort of characters may look a bit sort of unrealistic. We see these like women who are blatantly just like models, and it's very glossy in regards to stuff like that. So you have all the female characters are like super attractive and super skimpy clothes and everything like that, and that's great. Kind of like if you're a kind of a young teenage boy, you don't really think about anything with too much depth. But realistically, but we're not watching this series for realism, are we? Let's be honest. The one thing I liked, I have to say, which wasn't really explored upon too much, was the ninja characters. Now, I always think the problem with ninja characters like Sub-Zero and Scorpion, because they wear masks, they don't really spend too much time on it, because you never really have like a decent actor behind the masks, because their faces are covered up. They almost seem like sort of, I don't know, lesser characters, shall we say. But I will say that there's an episode which kind of focuses a little bit more on the sort of the rivalry between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and I would have loved to have seen that sort of move on a little bit more, because I think he was probably the kind of the most morally grey character. There are a couple of others, I would say, as well, but to me he was the most interesting character, because he was kind of, you know, could have gone with interesting paths, because he's a sort of a bad guy, but he's kind of has a little bit more respect for the good guys, if you see what I mean. We also see lots of other sort of Mortal Kombat characters. I think Kwai Chi, I think his name is. We see Reptile, Noob Saibot. We've also got like these sort of additional characters as well that were introduced originally for this series, like Vorpax and that. But to be honest with you, they're all very, very cheesy for the most part. 90% of these characters are just utter cheese. Now, this is going to be a spoiler from this point on if you haven't seen the series. So I want to talk about a little bit about the last episode. So one thing that this is very surprising if you haven't seen this series already is the last episode, where basically they kill off 90% of the cast of this show. So it's, you know, we basically, I think it was meant to go on for multiple seasons, and we probably would have seen these characters come back from the dead, but as it stands, it didn't. So this is how it ends, and we basically get Shao Kahn killing off pretty much everyone that we've seen in the show thus far, including the heroes. And it's one of those things to think, bloody hell, you know, you really weren't expecting that. So I don't know whether it was whether they had written stories for the next season and this would have been explained and addressed, or whether they knew it was going to be sort of cancelled. They just thought they had to kind of wrap it up quickly, and this was the way that they would do it. So, but nonetheless, it's actually quite surprising, and it's you know, you don't see this much killing in a TV show of the main characters, well, that I can really remember since the last days of Blake 7, I have to say. Anyway, it's worth watching for some of the martial arts fights, because that's really the highlight of this show. And, you know, they actually reproduce some of the characters relatively faithfully from the games, which is quite good. But to be honest with you, but I feel like maybe they weren't treated with the sort of reverence they should have been. Now, if we have a look at the web series, Mortal Kombat Legacy, it takes a little bit more of a adult approach to it, and kind of, I think, probably aesthetically is actually a lot better than this one. Although I don't think the fight scenes are quite as good, I have to say. So, overall, I'm going to have to give this series a 5 out of 10. And that really is the plus pointers for the martial arts and the sort of choreography from the actors and stuntmen who did it, basically. So 5 out of 10 for me. Go check it out if you've not seen it, and let me know what you think about it if you have seen it, and how do you think it compares to Mortal Kombat Legacy. Okay, so 5 out of 10 for me. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.